Good morning, fellow Rotarians. Thank you for having me today. Are we ready to roll? So, for a bit of background information on Habitat, there are about 1,100 affiliates across the United States in all 50 states, 25 affiliates here in Washington, and we also serve 70 countries around the world. I have a picture there of President Carter because one of the biggest myths about Habitat is that he is our founder. He is not. Millard and Fuller are our founders, but President Carter is our most popular volunteer. Next slide. Perfect. So Habitat Clallam was established in 1991 as Dungeness Valley Habitat. We currently built 38 homes in Clallam County. In 2015, we added a repair projects to our scope of work and have served hundreds of local families with Rally in the Alley and neighborhood cleanups. Our repair program gives us the opportunity to serve low and fixed income homeowners. And so I set up a little PR table over here with lots of information about all the different programs that we do. If you'd like to take any, that would be great. So, affordable housing, big buzzword, big topic, very politically active right now because we are in a critical housing crisis. And so I thought I'd start by sharing a little bit, what is affordable housing? There are a lot of definitions floating out there. There are some opinions, and then there are some factual things. So this slide shares the HUD definition of affordable housing. Currently in Washington State, 1 in 7 families pays more than 50% of their household income on housing. Think about the choices you'd have to make in your budget if you're spending 50% of your income. You got to think about transportation, medication, maybe education. What activities are you going to be able to afford for your children to do if 50% of your income every month is going to affordable housing? Workforce housing. This is a list of businesses that Habitat homeowners here in Clallam County work at. And so workforce housing is housing built to serve families that sit in the middle between affordable housing and luxury housing. There are a few different versions of workforce housing. Typically, they come into play where you're serving families that are between 60 and 120% of the area median income. There are benefits to having adequate affordable housing for workforce families. Workforce families allow the critical community workers, emergency responders, CNAs, restaurant workers, hospitality workers, school district staff to live where they work. Next slide. I serve on the recently formed Clallam County Housing Solutions Committee and learned a new term of housing at a recent meeting. Attainable housing. As you can see, there is a theme with these 3 different definitions that people not spend more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. That includes their PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, all included. There are many businesses under one roof at a Habitat affiliate. This is the staff that makes it happen. We've grown a little, we've lost a few. Joe Johnston served on our board for just about 6 years, and I recruited her to come work at Habitat, and we were thrilled to have her on the team. So what businesses are under one roof? Let me tell you. Retail stores, builder, new construction, home repair, social service, mortgage lender, affordable housing advocate, volunteer engagement, developer, fundraising events, impact agency, and workforce training. Those are a lot of lines of business under one Habitat affiliate. Our affiliate staff has approximately 17 dedicated staff. The majority of them work in the 2 Habitat stores. Pre-COVID, we had a lot of volunteers that worked in our Habitat stores, and they were of a vulnerable population, and they just haven't come back. And so we've had to backfill. So we have part-time staff and full-time staff. Let's see, we have a construction manager, we have a AmeriCorps that just joined us this week that we're very excited about. The following slides will share more on the many programs that we offer. So, who here has shopped at a Habitat store here in Clallam County? Almost 100%, nice. So they are a fundraising enterprise. Proceeds go towards our programs like new home builds, repair program, and aging in place. The Sequim Habitat Boutique store turns 4 November 18th of this month. We started in a very small location in Sequim and just about a year ago moved to our new location. Business is booming, I am happy to say. Let's see, our Port Angeles store has been in business for over 14 years of operation with outstanding staff. It's a must-go-to for many loyal customers looking for everything from furniture, lighting, building materials, tools, and appliances. Next slide. Okay, this is Rosie. She's so adorable. She was one of the funnest aging in place projects we did. I think we can all agree we're not going to build our way out of this. We have to preserve the aging housing stock that we already have in our communities. At Rosie's house, we repaired rotting siding on her home, and it was in desperate need of a fresh coat of paint. Rosie had a vision of 5 different colors on her home. This kind of paint job would take more human resources than Habitat had. So Sequim Sunrise Rotary partnered with Habitat and painted Rosie's house to her specifications, and she was thrilled. Next slide. Sequim Sunrise Rotary wrote a district grant, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, and partnered with Habitat on a repair project. The timing of this project also aligned with Sequim Beautiful Day on April 29th. Many volunteers came out that day to push the project over the finish line. The homeowner is a single mom who is deaf and raising a developmentally delayed child. Both of these projects were true collaborations to support local families. Next slide. Sequim High School Rotary Interact, which I have the pleasure of working with these young people, keeps you young when you hang around. Students continue to put service above self and have volunteered at nearly every Rally in the Alley neighborhood cleanup since 2016. Rally in the Alley is a partnership with the City of Sequim, Murray's Disposal, and Habitat. Again, a collaboration to have greater positive impact on families that live in communities. Rally in the Alley events are held 3 times a year. Next slide. So, workforce training. Who here's tried to hire a contractor lately? How many months out did they tell you? Probably a lot. So in 2019, we partnered with Peninsula College for our first workforce build class. In 2020, due to COVID, the college said, sorry, we're not able to do that. So we called our sponsors and community partners, and they were all in. It certainly helped that at the time our construction manager, Paul Arndt, had a teaching degree and was willing to lead the class. Since 2019, 26 students have participated in our annual Habitat Build class. We survey the students annually, and 50% are still working in the building trades. Habitat has hired students that completed the class as interns, AmeriCorps service members, and onto our construction staff. The 2023 Habitat Repair class had 2 very dedicated students that learned different phases of recycling a home. We could not host these classes without our community partners like Hartnagel's Millworks, Angeles Millworks, and Port of Port Angeles that also we were awarded a grant. Next slide. Okay, how do we qualify? So myth number 2 I'm going to share with you. We do not give the houses away. Families qualify for an affordable mortgage, not paying more than 30% of their income of the household. Habitat has deed restrictions. The shared appreciation schedule shown on this slide. First right of refusal for Habitat to purchase the home back at fair market value. Next slide. There are also income guidelines. We serve families that are between 30 to 60%, and sometimes we will push to 80%. This slide shows HUD's 30 to 60%. And we use USDA home loans, it's 502 home loan program. Unfortunately, Port Angeles just lost rural designation due to population. So we can no longer use that avenue for funding our homes, but we can still use some third-party funding at a low interest rate for our families. Yeah, way to grow, Port Angeles. Next slide. The first week of October, I participated in the Carter Work Project in Charlotte, North Carolina. The CWP started 37 years ago in New York City with President Carter and Mrs. Carter. For the past 14 years, Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood have hosted the CWP with the Carters. Due to health reasons, the Carters were not able to attend this year, but Garth and Trisha were fabulous hosts and worked alongside all of the volunteers. While it was cool meeting Garth and Trisha, the real stars of the week were the family partners and future homeowners. I had the privilege of working alongside Nene and help her dream of homeownership come true. Next slide. It is absolutely amazing to see the power of 700 volunteers a day can accomplish in 5 days. Day 1, we had a foundation, and you can see there, day 5, we were dried in. It was pretty remarkable. 2,000 different volunteers over the week, but there were roughly 700 volunteers a day on site working on those 27 homes. So really helped push that affiliate forward with the project they were working on. Okay, so here locally, we've been building homes with our self-help program at Maloney Heights neighborhood since 2012. We finished the 14th and final home August of this year. Obviously, this is an old Google map because there are not structures there yet, but it was the most recent one I could find. Next slide.
Where is that located?
We're on 16th and N Street. So take N Street to 16th and make a right. We're back by Serenity House.
Okay.
Yeah. West side of PA. Home dedications are always a celebration when a family receives their keys and is able to move in. So this was our first one in 2023. And then next slide, this is the final and 14th home. Couldn't be happier to have reached the milestone and move on to other projects. Next slide. So these represent a few of the local companies that support Habitat Clallam. Herman Brothers donates topsoil to every home we complete. Angeli's Millwork, Hart Nagel Building Supply sell building materials at a discount rate. In addition to supporting our build class every year, Grocery Outlet packs the pantry for every home before the dedication. And they don't just do food, they do cleaning supplies and shower curtains. It's amazing. Sunbonnet Sue gives a quilt to every member of the family at every home dedication. And Inner 4 Lumber has donated framing lumber for the last 8 homes we built at Maloney Heights, which is a savings of close to $20,000 per home. And they want to continue to work with us as we move forward with other projects. So that little story behind the Inner 4, when I started with Habitat as community outreach, I thought, let's go ask them for one package, materials package. So I went down and I met with them and talked about Habitat, and the gentleman in charge at the time said, we'll get back to you. And he got back to us and said, we'll give you $1,000. So fast forward a few years, and I found out through our chamber that there was a new lead manager there at the mill. And I thought, well, let me go try again. Maybe he has a different bent on Habitat. So I met with Dave Lowry and told him what we were doing. And he said, we're all in, we'll donate the lumber. So then we invited them to that dedication of the house. They donated the framing lumber. And they're like, we're all in when you build the next house. So fast forward about a year or so, and I received an email from the head of Inner 4 Lumber. They have mills along the West Coast and down in the Southeast, I think 26, some in Canada. And there was a letter from the CEO that said, all of you are charged with finding your local habitat, partnering with them, and supporting them. So what we started, this little project here in Port Angeles, wound up going nationwide, and now they partner with all the habitats in their community. Next slide. So what's next? Does anybody know what's next? All right. So Habitat International has a robust veterans program with corporate sponsors like Home Depot and Lowe's. Other resources support affiliates in serving our deserving but underserved population of veterans. How fitting that today is Veterans Day. We are going to be building a 4-plex cottages here in Port Angeles on Fairmount Avenue. You can see the before and the after. We actually bought this blighted property from the city of Port Angeles and had it cleared. It's a double lot, and we are very excited to move forward, and applications open today. So if you are a veteran, if you know of a veteran, if you're part of a veteran organization, they can pick up applications at either Habitat store They need to be returned by December 12th. And we'll be picking 4 veteran families for this little 4-plex we're doing. So I thought this was an interesting statistic that I wanted to share. 2.5 million US veterans, 24%, have housing cost burden measuring. They pay more than, meaning they pay more than 30%. Unlike other civilians, our older veterans are more likely to have disabilities, 35% versus 28%, which may require home modifications, health, and other supportive services. So these cottages that we're building are going to be 0 entry, wider hallways, wider doorways, 0 entry shower, 0 entry out to their backyards, so that even if they are mobile now, but potentially could have mobility issues in the future, the house will be ready for them to grow into. So this is a rendering that is not correct. We've changed it, but I wasn't able to get another rendering into the slides. It's very similar. What we have done in order to meet compliance with City of Port Angeles and their multifamily is we have staggered the roof lines, and that's really the only main change. They want them to look like distinct and individual and not necessarily like a barracks. So February 2022 is when we bought that blighted property. And so here we are, this close to turning in our permitting application to the city. City of PA has a lot of new staff, and we are one of the first that is engaging in this multifamily. And so they're learning, we're teaching them, they're teaching us. And so the permitting process has been a little bit bumpy, but all in all, the City of Port Angeles has been great to work with. This is kind of the backside. They'll have a little backyard, a little patio to sit out on, and we are going to do fencing for them. The back of their house will face Fairmount, and their entrance will be off of Hazel into their units. Next slide. So we don't have land, we can't build. The Habitat Board realized a few years ago we were running out of land. They knew we were going to finish up that Maloney Heights community. And so our affiliate service area in 2019, Jamestown's Clallam Tribe was the first money in on a purchase of property. And then we got $100,000 from First Federal Community Foundation. If we're able to raise the funds to purchase the land, then we can take the cost of the land out of the price of the home. We can get more affordable. Next slide. So October of 2021, we purchased 4.5 acres, less than a mile from the center of Sequim, making this an ideal location, perfect for affordable workforce housing, close to transportation, schools, and shopping. This location is also ideal for hopefully future CTE, career technology education, construction program in partnership with Sequim High School. Habitat also closed on 6.4 acres below Alpine Loop in August of 2022. These 2 pieces of land could potentially be where 80 homes are built for families that live and work in Clallam County. We decided, due to the properties, the one up on Miller Road is very slanted and would take a lot of engineering and a lot of wall building. Even though we built that one, we bought that one first, we decided to start building on the lower cow pasture, went with the path of least resistance. The land is flatter and more manageable. We turned in our ACUP, administrative conditional use permit, on October 20th for 50 homes on that lower lot. And we also applied for a Washington Commerce grant for $2 million towards infrastructure, connecting infrastructure to housing. We pushed the button on that in partnership with the City of Sequim on Halloween, and we find out January if we're funded. Commerce put aside $55 million. We're asking for 2. I don't know how many projects that are out there that are ready. But we're hoping we'll be successful in being funded in that grant. Next slide. City Council in Sequim in 2021 finally allowed for multifamily, because density is what's going to help us on these properties. Single family detached is not going to get us there. So we were able to, as I mentioned earlier, we do advocacy, and we were successful in that campaign. Next slide. Community funded projects are congressional set-asides and federal funding for specific projects in the district of elected officials. Habitat Clallam submitted an application earlier this year. There were approximately 66 applications submitted in U.S. Congressman Kilmer's service area. 15 were selected by a community panel, and Habitat's application ranked number 3. We requested $2 million for, again, infrastructure and development. We will be notified in December, fingers crossed. And if there's a budget, we'll be notified if we'll fund it. Next slide. Advocacy for affordable housing is essential to Habitat's continued work. Habitat for Humanity works to increase affordability by influencing policies and systems focused on supply, preservation, access to credit, zoning, and land use. We support, with support from Habitat for Humanity International, we work on advocacy issues at the local, state, and federal level. Next slide. So this is an artist rendering of a potential style. We actually have a newer style from an architect, because you have to have that to put in your conditional use, even though you won't even be building the houses for a year and a half or 2 years. The development would have green space for families to gather and enjoy the community. And yes, many developers have told me that this roof style is not good for the Pacific Northwest. Next slide. As I mentioned, there's 1,100 affiliates in the US. Only 84 were awarded funding by the Mackenzie Scott Foundation. 4 affiliates out of the 25 in Washington, Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, and our little community right here. Our affiliate was one of the smallest and one of only a few rural affiliates that were funded. This is not an application that you apply for. I got an email and it said in the subject line, confidential donor, and I opened it up and I went, yeah, I'm being scammed. And so I ignored it. And then I got, a couple of weeks later, I got an email from the CEO of Habitat International, Jonathan Reckford, and he said, Colleen, I think you got an email and you might want to open it. And I thought, oh no, he's been hacked. This is really sophisticated. So I called a colleague at Habitat International and she said, it's legit, make the call. So that was one of the best days of my career. You get $1 million, it's unrestricted, you have no timeline to use it. We just want you to keep doing the work that you're doing. So we were pretty honored. So we anticipated the development in Sequim to be roughly $80,000 per home. At the time we were thinking 40 homes, that's 3.2 million. Now we're up to 50 homes. I'm not going to do the math, it's too early, but we need more money. We're very grateful to Ms. Scott and her foundation for the incredibly generous gift to our affiliate. But as you can see, we have a way to go. Fundraising will initiate a capital campaign soon. Next slide. So you can see Joe in there. There are many ways to volunteer for Habitat besides swinging a hammer. I'm very grateful for the people in this picture. They are volunteers and give of their time, talent, and treasure to Habitat Clallam in support of affordable home ownership. Other ways to serve and volunteer include our advisory council, committees. Both Habitat stores need volunteers, special events. Every volunteer matters. Next slide. So I would be remiss if I came out and talked to you and did not have a call to action. So certainly advocacy, speaking to elected officials at the local, state, and federal level about the importance of affordable workforce housing for our homeowners. Donate to our Habitat stores. That is the donation hotline. Cash contributions always welcome. The donations to the Habitat store, you can call the hotline. We have a truck. It goes out 3 days a week to both Sequim and Port Angeles. They will come pick up big items, or you can also drop off items to either Habitat store. And then shopping at either Habitat store is always welcome. We keep tons and tons of things out of our landfill that people are able to donate and recycle. And there are some real unique treasures that we get there sometimes. Next slide. I'll leave you with these 2 quotes regarding affordable housing and answer any questions you may have. Questions? Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna go
North.
North first.
Workforce, we were talking earlier about our very appreciated workforce this time. Have you found ways to draw in workforce to help with your builds and to support always and projects?
So we use contractors for our electrical, our plumbing, our roofing. We sub that out. Most of the local contractors, like everybody, loves Habitat and work us into their schedule as best they can. Sometimes though, we have to push something out, an activity that needs to happen before the next thing can happen because they just can't work us into their schedule. So by and large, we're pretty lucky because of the reputation that we have. At one point, we needed some drywallers, and I went on and Googled Clallam County drywallers. I think there were 16 or 18 that came up. I called everyone, most went to voicemails. Colleen with Habitat, we have money to pay you. We need a drywaller. Because when they hear Habitat, they're assuming that we're looking for something for free, which is always wonderful. But I also realized that these people are running a small business. They have families to feed. They have staff to support. And I want to be sure that we can use local as much as we can and we can support them.
I heard you mention programs with the high school. What about Peninsula College going forward?
It would be probably a challenge for them since we're going to be building in Sequim, that big project. Perhaps they might come out for the veterans build, which we're hoping to break ground on soon. They might want to come out, but really they have their syllabus and their curriculum for their construction technology. So if the teacher would let them come out for extra credit or bring them out for a day to see a build site, we could do something like that. That's fine.
Actually, several, but let's see. I'll start with this easiest one, maybe. Are there stock designs that you use if you're going to say you're building single-family homes, so you don't have to redesign every single one? And
so Habitat International, as I mentioned, we have 1,100 affiliates, and their website has a section just for construction, and affiliates share their plans. You can go on, you can look at those plans. And decide something that will fit your needs. This particular veteran cottage that's coming up, we couldn't really find anyone that had exactly what we were looking for to fit on that particular lot. So we did go to an architect to design something. What else?
do you do tiny homes?
We do not. We do not do tiny homes. Some affiliates do. We're not doing it right now. Anything else?
Yeah.
Bring it.
So are for all the construction projects in I'll call it an urban area where there are services available, sewer, water, power, etc.
So we prefer to work more in the urban communities. The county brings challenges. Working in the county, we would have to do septic, which is costly. And also we want to be cognizant, not all of our families have cars. Traditionally, most of our Habitat families are first-time homeowners. And so they have never really had to, fix something in the house, or, they call the landlord and say, come fix this. We want them to be near bus lines and shopping and school. So if they have mobility issues, and I probably should mention there's 3 criteria. So you have to have a need, which means you have substandard housing. You could be cost burdened. You could be doubling up with another family in order to qualify. So you have to have a need. You have to have an ability to pay an affordable mortgage, and you have to be willing to partner. 250 hours of sweat equity per adult 18 and older, 100 hours on construction, 50 hours can be donated by friends and family, and the other 100 hours, we want to set these families up for success. So we send them to Financial Peace University, first-time home buyer class, HOA class, homeowner maintenance class, because we want them to be successful in ownership. Anything else? Go, Jim.
A few weeks ago, we had another speaker who talked about basically the unmet need in Clallam County and what it's going to be totally, what it's going to be. And he mentioned that we were north of 3,000 basically people who are unhoused or underhoused. And so your project charitably maybe take care of 100 of those. Right? eventually. So basically, to my question, the impression I got from that presentation was that basically there's no way, I mean, Habitat does the job that all we do a small amount, and quite frankly, probably has of those 3,000 people, I'm speculating here, but probably way less than half of those would meet your criteria,
Right.
you know, to be in your program.
Mhm.
So government's the only place that this can happen if it's going to happen.
Mhm.
If governments jump in and start taking spent gravel pits or whatever excess land is available and acquire monies to start building subsidized or government housing, how would you anticipate that would affect your program?
Well, land is finite out here because we have 1 million acres in national park, so there isn't a lot of land. There are some House bills, House Bill 1406, and Commissioner Johnson has wanted to bond that and make a land trust that they would buy land. Affordable housing developers could buy the land from them and replenish it. But I think, eventually we're going to run out of land out here. And that's why we do our repair program, which assists people who need repairs, either physically can't do it or financially just don't have the money to do it. So I write grants to support that. But if you think of the housing continuum, over here is the family that's living in a car. When we did our last home in Port Angeles, we had 25 applications for one home. Narrowed that down through criteria and incomplete applications, and we wound up presenting 3 families. The majority of those 25 families are living in travel trailers that were meant to be a recreational vehicle for vacation and fun, not to be permanent homes. So if you start on that end of the continuum, you get them into some kind of shelter. They move from the shelter into some kind of maybe either supportive housing or Section 8 apartment or something where they can get a little more stable. Then they have an address. Then they can get a job. Then the kids can get registered in school. And they continue moving through that housing continuum. Then they can afford their own rent and move into a nicer apartment. We're at this end. And I will be the first to say home ownership is not for everyone. Everyone does not want to be a homeowner. Some people shouldn't be homeowners. But for those that do, we are a viable opportunity. And as they're moving through that continuum, whatever services they're receiving are then opening up for the person behind them. So Habitat has sort of a specific niche, so to speak, that we do. I'm not sure if we actually had enough land, how quickly we could get things done. I told you that Congressman Kilmer has awarded us $2 million if it makes it into the budget. We're using commerce funding for the chip, the infrastructure. I don't really see the government getting into building houses at this time. I could be wrong, but I don't really see it. And then you also have Peninsula Housing that also has self-help and rentals and a myriad of things that they do to support housing. Anybody else? Yes.
Since there's a scarcity of land, have you thought of going vertical with your home ownership?
So that's why we're doing the fourplexes. The property in Sequim will be fourplexes and duplexes. We'll have 10 fourplexes and hopefully 5 duplexes. We want to serve multi-generational. Not everybody wants to go up and down stairs to bedrooms. So we want to do some single-story duplexes as well. In Seattle and Tacoma and other areas, they're doing air condos, which means they don't own the land. They just own the building. I don't know if we would move in that direction. There's a lot of complication and a lot of zoning and permitting that goes into those multi-stories. And I don't know that we would have the bandwidth to do it. Sometimes I lay awake at nights and say, oh my gosh, 50 homes, what was I thinking? So some habitats do, and maybe in the future, we may get to that point that we need that out here. But for now, we're still doing single family homes, even if they're attached. Anybody else? Sure.
So what, if anything, does your Rotary Club do to support Habitat? And what could ours do?
So Good News Giving, usually 1 month a year, one of the directors on the board will pick Habitat as a Good News Giving recipient. So we still do Good News Giving. Certainly volunteering, that's huge when we get going on this veterans cottages. I would love to send out information on build days, and maybe you could come out as a group or come out as individuals and work on this very worthwhile project. And certainly funding. We're always looking for funding in any way to help support our programs. Yeah, good question. Anybody else? Well, I sure appreciate your time today. Love spending time with fellow Rotarians. Thank you. Technology, appreciate your help. This was lovely, and please look at some of the stuff I have over here. Joe, did you have any questions? Did I forget anything? Nope. Okay.
Well, thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.